storm that this pandemic is putting us through. And we're presented with a new normal. And as much as we ache to go back to how things were, things just don't ever go back. As human beings, we are hardwired for connection and for belonging. So please bear in mind that there is nothing normal about this new normal. And you would find yourself, like I have as well, experiencing a roller coaster of emotions. You will find yourself feeling a bit withdrawn, even from the settings that you feel are social enough. At this time, you would find that perhaps you're having a whole lot of lack of interest in things that you used to enjoy, and perhaps having persistent low moods, inability to carry out seemingly mundane tasks like just getting out of bed or brushing your teeth or taking your bath, and changes in your eating and sleeping patterns, and maybe just a general lack of enthusiasm. But for me, I feel like these are not the worst things. I feel like what's worse than all of this is the loneliness and the helplessness that comes with it. It's feeling like nothing will ever change, even if we know that things are constantly always changing. So when mental health is sort of cast aside as, this health thing or this thing that, people deal with on the other side and you deal with in your personal life, what we are left with is people like me years ago in that investment firm. Competent, but unable to realize our fullest potential. Surviving, but not particularly thriving. And whose loss is it really? When you think about it, it's everyone's loss. It's the organization that could have saved on health insurance and could have reaped the benefits of having a stellar employee. It is me. I could have thrived and flourished in a workplace and in my personal life. And honestly, it just is business and economic sense. So mental health, as a personal and collective effort, needs to be a priority in everyone's life. But now as a change maker, I can now see years down the line that perhaps one of my superpowers, I say, is resilience. And it's not because I don't feel pain. It's not because I am not sad. It's not because I'm not overwhelmed, but because I continue to build a healthy relationship with all of my emotions. And I allow myself to feel all of my feelings. And that is something that I want to put to every single person listening and watching today. It is, for me, when I think of resilience, I think of it as a muscle. The more I use it, the stronger it gets. It is formed for me in years of deliberate wellness practices, daily meditations, affirmations, movement, strict sleep patterns, disciplined sleep patterns, wholesome, intuitive eating, mindful social media consumption, screen time, and all-round self-care. For me, it is coming to the realization that burnout is not a badge of honor, and prioritizing your mental health is you choosing to give everyone and everything the best of yourself and not what's left of yourself. So if you leave here with nothing today, leave here with this. First, being mentally healthy or being resilient is not accidental. It is deliberate. It will not happen by mistake. You would have to be intentional about it. So what I would put to you is instead of like, I always say, if you don't schedule it, it doesn't get done. So instead of creating, your scheduling your wellness around your work and all of the other aspects of your life and other commitments, how about you schedule your commitments around your mental health? And another thing I would say is, I feel like every single person has a role to play in helping every other person be resilient in one way or the other. And I like to always talk about vulnerability, even at work, even in workplaces. I believe it's so powerful and important. And I don't mean, without boundaries, because vulnerability without boundaries is not really vulnerability, right? So I invite you to, in your personal and professional life and wherever you find yourself, whatever group you find yourself, to be able to create safe spaces where people can have hard, uncomfortable, but very honest conversations about life, about their feelings, and all that is going on in their mind. And it's really just encouraging everybody to not be too quick to move away from our feelings, because in this period, we will feel a lot of things that we have labeled bad feelings and negative feelings, and things that we have labeled positive feelings. But what I want to put to you today is that we need to begin to build healthy relationships with all of these feelings. We need to begin to feel all our feelings and give ourselves time to sit within our feelings. I believe that this is how we create an environment where we can get our mind right. Thank you. Over to you, Emma.
Yeah, wow, what an incredible story. And I absolutely love the message of thriving and not surviving. So I hope that resonates with lots of you out there. Right, our next speaker is sadly not able to be with us, but he has sent a video with a very important message. One World Ambassador Dr. Raghu Appasani is a psychiatrist, a neuroscientist, a mental health advocate, and a social entrepreneur. He is the founder and CEO of the Minds Foundation, using a grassroots approach to eliminate stigma and provide educational, medical, and moral support for patients with mental illness in rural India.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there in person live today to engage, but thank you so much for inviting me to One Young World and Charter Accounts Worldwide. Hopefully we can all meet in person soon enough, but I hope that you're all staying safe and healthy and caring for one another. So I'm Raghu Appasani. I'm a proud Indian American, and I've navigated a spectrum of culture my entire life. I'm fortunate to have done so, spending time in rural India, being educated in the US, psychiatrist in Los Angeles, and having traveled to many, many different places around the world, and proud to be a One Young World ambassador as well. That keeps me very, very connected to a lot of impact that's going on. So just to give you a little bit of background, I entered the scientific research world at pretty young age, over 12 or 13, and I was researching a lot of the pathways of memory and addiction and depression and brain development. But always within me, somewhere deep, there was this fire, this desire to understand, why is there a stigma around issues of mental health? Why is there a disconnect of understanding? And this led me back to India about 10 years ago or more, to really see, is there something that we've lost when we become industrialized and urbanized? My experiences there and within my family led me to form the Minds Foundation in 2010 with one intention: to resurface empathy and compassion, to create a world that is accepting of every human regardless of where they are on the mental health spectrum. Through the years, I've been able to learn from communities in India, Nepal, Europe, and the United States. There was a quick realization, and that's that when it comes to mental health, there are no boundaries. It affects the old, the young, the rich, the poor. It affects those in a village in India. It affects those in a monastery in Nepal, or those in the best hospital in the Western world. And through my work of Minds, I've learned many lessons over the years that guide my practice of psychiatry now. However, I want to bring up two of the most important lessons that stay quite true now in this pandemic. First, the power of community. Humans are interdependent organisms. We thrive off each other's energy. We long for affection. We long for others to listen, to embrace us. So when it comes to mental health, the power of community is intangible. The support aids in healing. It aids in allowing one to not feel alone in their journey. And second, the power of storytelling cannot be understated. Not only is it therapeutic for the individual sharing their story, but it allows others to become connected, to not feel alone in their emotions, and to know that they're never alone. And I want to now come to the current situation, because I think that these lessons that I was able to discover and learn stay very true. Now, we say humans are interdependent species, but on the other hand, we're being told to quarantine, to stay away from each other, to maintain distance, to wear masks, to be on Zoom calls. And how do we continue to develop community without physical presence? Well, there are a lot of ways, and I want to dive a little bit into that. So we all know, regarding mental health right now, there's a lot being faced by society, ranging from isolation to increase in substance use, food insecurity, and unfortunately increases in domestic abuse. But just as they say on an airplane, you got to secure your mask before assisting others. And personally, as a frontline healthcare worker, I've learned that more is being asked of us. And it's not only essential that we have access to the mental health resources, but that we also shift our mindset away from self-stigma about voicing our needs and fears to giving ourselves permission to take care of ourselves when time is ever so limited, because we are all a vulnerable population in this time. So now let's be realistic. There's actually 3 pandemics going on, right? COVID-19, it's mitigated by hand washing, physical distancing, following these guidelines. Economic suffering, we'll recover with time and appropriate policies. And mental health, we're past the phase of this being an acute collective trauma, and we can call it chronic. We're seeing increases in stress, anxiety, substance use. It's almost as if COVID-19 is playing a lot of mind games with millions of people around the world. And at this point, a multitude of stressors is like pouring gasoline over a wildfire. So let's talk about how we're feeling right now. I think that the concept of resilience is interesting, but we have to appreciate that a lot of what we're feeling, whether you've had mental health before or not, is actually can be defined maybe as grief. And we know the traditional 5 stages of grief laid out by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And often they actually run in parallel, and we work through them in almost like a flux, right? So David Kessler actually in a recent Harvard Business Review brought up 2 concepts that really stood up to me. And I think it really explains the emotions that are arising during this time. Now we have anticipatory grief. And that's that feeling we get about what does the future hold when we're uncertain. It is the mind going to the future and imagining the worst. To calm yourself, you want to really come into the present. So I bring myself to a simple breathing meditation usually, a 4-4-4, 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. And the second point, he actually brings in a 6th stage of grief, meaning, and this reminds me of one of my favorite psychiatrists and therapists, Viktor Frankl, and his concept of logotherapy. And so in a time in which we've been stripped of control in our lives, where do we find meaning? And I believe that shifting our mindset is key in this. It's about finding meaning in what you do and the everyday things, the little things, the big things. And this, in turn, will lead to happiness. So in all of this uncertainty, it can be very easy to lose track of what we call our drishti, which is our focus or gaze. So during this process, I try to align myself with my drishti, right? By trying to focus on, okay, we're in this, what can I control, what can I not control, and what are the silver linings? Because I personally don't want to go back to what was normal. And for those of us with the privilege of having a safe place to stay or financial security or a family or a community to support us, this is our chance, a rare one, in fact, to get rid of the noise and to only bring back what works for us, what makes our lives richer, what makes our kids happier, what makes us truly proud. And another concept that helps me align with this is the Hoffman process. And I bring myself to this quadrant, and it focuses on the physical, the intellectual, the emotional, and the spiritual. So we focus on the physical, exercise, diet. We focus on the intellectual, demonstrated by our commitment to career and education. And probably for many of us, our mounting student debt. But we often forget the emotional and the spiritual, broadly defined. So again, I encourage you to bring yourself back to this simple breathing exercise. Check in with your mind, check in with your body, and ask yourself, what am I feeling at the moment, and what are my needs? Through this practice, imagine the new normal you want. Remember, we are just tenants leasing plot on this world. Now that we've been sent to our rooms, let's reassess how we want to interact with ourselves, our bodies, our minds, each other, and our environment. We can bring ourselves to this visualization of the new normal through finding solitude. For many of us who continue to work, it might be difficult to find this time for ourselves. You might be at home, homeschooling, working from home, managing a busy household, trying to figure out how do I get silence to be on my Zoom meeting. So perhaps these phrases on the left where we look at the concepts of, okay, let's find some moments of happiness may no longer apply, and you might actually be wanting alone time. But for a majority, we fear being alone. But we need to understand there's a drastic difference between solitude and loneliness. It's a spectrum. And in this current situation, where are we finding the time to be alone, to have the moment of solitude, to allow our bodies to calm, reset, and energize? I grew up with a simple Sanskrit term called samadhi, which essentially means a state of oneness. Without finding that oneness, we leave our mind and body alone and unwanted, and we bombard ourselves with news, anxieties, and work, leaving ourselves on the side of the spectrum of loneliness. Now, finding solitude is difficult, but I feel it is now more important than ever. We are in a very uncertain time. We have lost control of quite a bit in our lives, but there is a lot that we can control. Our mental hygiene is just as important as our families, friends, and colleagues. To reach that zone of solitude and samadhi, I encourage you all to give yourselves a few minutes each day to free yourself from the inputs and reset your dishti. By doing so, we can crack the hard problems we face, realign our values, and walk into a new normal in which we have empathy and compassion for one another, and one that we want for ourselves. So, some simple actions. Prioritize compassion. Just thank a colleague. Write one thing down that you're grateful for that day. Mindfulness, broadly defined. Be a child, though. Because essentially they're the ones practicing the art of mindfulness so perfectly that they lose themselves in the present moment constantly with a consistent sense of wonder. So take yourself back to that play mode. And connection, we're fortunate to continue to see each other through virtual platforms, but sometimes it's important to check in with one another on an individual basis. Sleep. So important, so hard. We know it's essential. What can you do? Get those screens out of the room. Read a book, take a warm shower, get some oils and essences, some candles. Really try to detach yourself, stick to a routine. And self-inquiry. We sometimes feel that we can be working in a cog of a system. We feel that we lose control. Now we have a layer of a pandemic struggling to go uphill on a daily basis. Now, self-inquiry can help you train yourself to operate at that 30,000 foot level and regain skills of patience, connection, clarity, to allow yourself to be present and build resiliency. And so some of you have asked some questions about resilience and integration of meditation. So what I would say is that resilience is a broad term. And I want to simply put it this way. With everything going on currently around the world, with racial inequality, with the COVID pandemic, with inequalities in healthcare, the simple answer, and I don't like to get political, is we have to reimagine education. We have to start to equip the future, our youth, with the tools they need to face emotional turmoil, emotional obstacles, and other obstacles that they'll face in their life. Because if we educate them at a young age with that toolkit in their back pocket of, hey, I'm facing this obstacle, what do? We prevent anger, we prevent violence. We create a society of resilience. And so resilience is that ability to counteract obstacles in a healthy manner. What can you do simply in the boardroom? At this stage in a short term, start your meetings with a simple meditation or breathwork exercise. Remember, 4 seconds of breathing in, 4 seconds of holding, 4 seconds of breathing out. Very simple, very effective. There were some questions about imposter syndrome. Now, we all feel it, and you have to give yourself some slack because these are uncertain times. And the fact that you feel as an imposter actually means that you recognize that there's a lot we don't know. And that's important because that feeling can lead you to that curiosity and intellectual inquiry. And so you can push yourself to learn more. And, be very strict with your schedule. Try to set time aside, work with those in your household, because it's important to have that time of solitude for yourself. And that's where you will grow. Because between stimulus and response is that pause and is that area where we can grow and gain freedom, as Viktor Frankl says. So thank you for having me. I'm sorry I couldn't be there live again. Please reach out to me, and there's a lot we can talk about. But just hang in there. There's a lot we can learn, and we are all connected. We are all interdependent. We have a unified consciousness. So whatever you do, we feel as a society, and we contribute to it together. So thank you so much, and I hope to connect with you all very soon.
Thank you so much. Although he's not here with us live, we are so grateful to him for sharing such a powerful and positive message. Clearly, there's lots of food for thought here, so perhaps we have time for a couple of questions. We are running over a little bit, so I will keep it short and sweet. Hawa, I need to borrow you for a second. What do you think of the concept of fake it till you make it? Do you think this approach can ever be effective in the long run?
I love that you said in the long run, because anyone can say, well, absolutely, it can get you through day by day. I think it's kind of tough, you know, when you really think about it. Fake it till you make it. I feel like on the one hand, it's what are you faking? And then on the other hand, I'm thinking, okay, but for how long if you're not actually doing the work? You know, so I do believe that there is a place for a lot of things, including fake it till you make it. But I also believe that we should be very careful not to use it as an excuse to not do anything about something, you know, whatever that is, whether it's our well-being or mental health and things like that. I feel like, yes, you can fake it, but the thing about mental health, and in my own experience that I've come to realize, is that if you don't actually dig deeper to see what the underlying issues potentially are, then I think you're just buying yourself some time. And that's why I wouldn't particularly agree with it for the long term. Absolutely in the short term, as a first response, absolutely. But in the long term, I would say we need to go deeper into what the actual things are. If it's confidence, if it's resilience, if it's, you know, any other things that you feel are vices for you that you feel like you need to address, I feel like we need to address them head on.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Thank you so much for that. So, Kaivan, coming to you, similar kind of theory, but what advice can you give on coping with failure?
I think, first of all, it would be defining for yourself what that means. No one can define it other than you, what that actually means. Does it mean you haven't reached your destination yet? Does it mean it was a learning, a lesson, or anything else, just to make sure that that's there? Now, the quote that comes very much to my mind, you could say I failed a few times with startups in the past and others, was very much from Bruce Lee, where he talks about being like water. And it's an opportunity to learn to adapt. And maybe this idea won't work today, but maybe it's not meant for today. Maybe it was for 2 years from now in a different way. You can complain about the rock and the obstacle, or you can find a way to go around it. So having a good metaphor, having a good definition that resonates with you, gives you inspired, that's the only thing I could say to recommend.
Okay, so in 3 simple sentences: don't fake it, define failure, learn and grow. Thank you so much, guys. So clearly this conversation can go on for so much longer, but I think what we've learned today is that it's important to have spaces like these so we do have the open area for discussion. Thank you so much to Kaivan, Hawa and Raghu for their time, and also to the fantastic Kate Robertson. We will now go to our closing speaker. Michael Izza is Chairman of Chartered Accountants Worldwide and CEO of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales. He is a powerful, forward-thinking force in the world of business and has a steadfast belief in the power of young leadership. Hi, Michael.
thank you, Emma. What a fantastic webinar this has been. I realise that I'm at the end of this webinar now, but I want to take the opportunity just to say hello to all my fellow chartered accountants, all the One Young World ambassadors, and all members of the FinBiz community, because this is a terrific that we've got together. And if we focus and if we're determined, we can change the world. Now, I realise that we're running short of time, but I just want to say what really good advice and contributions we've heard this evening. If you're thinking about your strategies for resilience, you can't separate your personal and your business life. I mean, the two things overlap. If your home life is a mess, it's going to spill over into your business life. If you've got problems in your business life, it's going to be something that you take home. So you can't separate the two. They're not mutually exclusive. What you've actually heard this evening, I think, are some really good techniques for dealing with resilience in a whole variety of situations. But I want to tell you about some of the things that I use to help me. Emma early on put up a slide with a number of words on it, a little word cloud. And one of those words, or two words, were positive attitude. It's so important to have a positive attitude. When you hit a roadblock, when you find a problem, you've got to get up and try again. You know, there are no prizes for going home and sulking. You've got to dress yourself down and try again. We all need to create space where we can actually think about the issues. And one thing that this pandemic has really brought home, I think, to many, many people who've never really thought about it before, is the importance of mental health. And my personal strategy for dealing with mental health is to do gardening. Now, you may think that that's not something that would work for you, but anything that gives you the opportunity to just detach yourself from the issue that you're dealing with at that point in time and do something different for a few minutes, for an hour, you know, it can do wonders for your state of mind. And when you go back to the problems that you're dealing with, when you go back to those difficult situations you've got to resolve, all of a sudden things become a lot clearer. Now, I just want to say a few words about the FinBiz community and the opportunity that we find ourselves with today. The pandemic is dreadful. It can't be thought of in any other way because so many people have died, so many lives have been disrupted. A health crisis became an economic crisis, and as you heard, it's potentially one that's impacting mental health as well. But it is the biggest opportunity that we've had this century to reset the dial. And in the context of the SDGs, governments around the world are going to have to spend unprecedented amounts of public finance to support economies and to support the population. What we've got to make sure is that that money is actually spent in a way that's going to create a better world. And I can think of no better blueprint for the world I want to live in than the 17 Sustainability Development Goals. So earlier this week, I was the coordinator in the UK of a letter that was signed by 150 business leaders and sent to the Prime Minister. It's a little step, but if we all take little steps together, it creates an unstoppable momentum. We all have to collaborate. No country is going to be able to solve the SDGs alone. And that's why I think it's so exciting that we've got representatives from over 80 different countries on this webinar tonight. If you connect, if you combine your efforts, it's going to be a really powerful force for good. I just want to say in conclusion that I hope if this is the first time that you've experienced Chartered Accountants Worldwide or One Young World, it isn't the last time we see you. We're going to be planning more of these webinars in future. We would welcome you into our community as active participants. And Emma, congratulations to you and Jolly for hosting such an excellent webinar. And I hope that you all have a fantastic evening, or if it's still midday with you, a fantastic day. Thank you, Emma, and back to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael. What an amazing way to conclude. And it's been a remarkable hour. I particularly really enjoyed your comments about not separating personal and professional, because to me, life is all about beyond the balance. It's not 9 to 5 anymore. It's not work and life. It's a circle, and it's all together. So we're just going to take a 1-minute reflection period to just kind of think about what we've learned today, and perhaps think about what you could now do differently. So think about a time when you've perhaps felt anxious, or you've struggled or felt stressed. And then maybe think about a time where you've missed an opportunity because perhaps fear held you back. And what have these moments taught you? How did you feel when you came through it? And what did you learn? Because I think the important thing of what we've learned today is, how would you do it differently if this happened again? How can we all build resilience in the next few days, weeks, months, and years? I think it's important for us to think about purpose, to think about being more mindful, being more self-aware, and building positive relationships. But most importantly, it's about self-care and taking care of each other. Like Michael said, the power of community is fantastic. So let's use this space to reflect and think about how we can find strength and resilience to tackle these tough times ahead. Let's take all of this away and make great change in the world. So, sorry, Jolly appears to have cut off there. We've got a slight volume issue. Oh, he's back. Hello?
Oh, yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a technical issue on my side. I'm back. Sorry to disappoint. Yeah, no, so we're coming to the end, and I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining the first edition of the Building Resilience series. What a bonanza it's been. We're so humbled by the speakers we've heard from, the audience we've brought together, and of course to our partners for making this happen. We'd love to know how you're feeling after today's event. So if you can complete our final poll, which should still appear on your right-hand side, it will ask you a little bit how you're feeling after the event today. So as you're doing that, we're just thinking, what's the point of all of this? After that reflection exercise, we really want you and urge you to take meaningful action as a result of today, either in your personal or professional lives, no matter how large or small. We need you to ensure that we can rebuild a better world with strength and optimism. Each and every one of us has the ability to enact meaningful change. We are the most informed and connected generation in history, and this comes with a great responsibility. Yeah, so the final poll results are trickling back in, and it's great to see 20% more of you are feeling a bit more optimistic after today's event. And that's what it's all about. It's about making those small change over a longer period of time. So as you've heard, we'll be doing more of these sessions, and we want to follow up to get some feedback about what content we can create to better support you. We want to run these series for you and how we can best progress as a community.
Yeah, so let's use all these learnings from today. Let's try and affect change in our lives and learn to deal with any obstacles that are thrown in our way, of which there will be many. Let's be kind to ourselves, let's be mindful, and just harness all of this to our advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the final thing is please do learn more about FinBiz 2030 and the task force work on the Chartered Accountant Worldwide website. And get in touch if you're interested in joining forces. We are always looking to make meaningful partnerships with a view to creating a positive social impact. We also want to give a huge thank you to our partners at Sehingga, Big Top Multimedia and A1 for bringing this event to life. On behalf of the Finance and Business 2030 Task Force, I want to say a huge thank you and see you again next time. Thank you very much.
Guys. Thanks so much. Thank you. Bye.